You want to hear some stuff from the new book?
Yeah.
It's a real downer.
Downer. Yes. Downer.
It deals with a time when I was living in Seattle and life was kicking ass. I got this new great job managing a food bank down in the Pike Place market, and just came back to the Pacific Northwest. I'd been in Washington D.C. for 4 years, mucking up with the muckety mucks there, and getting spit on by the aristocrats, and hanging with the crazy zealots and activists and all sorts, and just come back and was marinating in everything Pacific Northwestness, growing out my beard and drinking microbrews every night, and just rolling around in the dirt and going camping on weekends. And then I had this backpacking injury. I was up solo up in off of I-90 around Cleveland backpacking, and something gave in my back. And being a 27-year-old guy, I was like, oh, whatever, I can do it. And did the hike and came back and was hurting more. And it was over the course of about 9 months that my condition spiraled out of control. The pain went into my knee, went in my thighs. The doctors didn't know what was going on. They couldn't help me at all. Pretty soon, I was on crutches. And then, because I didn't have any answers and I didn't know what was going on, I was in excruciating pain. I put myself in a wheelchair. I resigned my job, and I moved back into my parents' outside of Bellingham. And it was basically in the dark. This spot of going from being in the best point of my life to a place of total mystery and questions and unknown. So that's what the book's about. Want to hear a poem? This first poem comes from the second half, which isn't as narrative. The first half is a little bit more of the story or the reflection of my experience. The second half is kind of what happened afterwards, when I had gotten better, and I was living in a cabin in the woods, writing poetry and trying to have my Thoreau experience. But you can't do the Thoreau thing anymore if you're still on Facebook. But you can still live in semi-rustic cabins, and you get this weird agglomeration of modern and somewhat rustic life. Okay. Creation myth. In the beginning was the loneliness, and the loneliness created a God in her own image. And the God said, now I have power. Now I can erase the long abandonment from which I came. And then God created the heavens and the earth, and the creatures and spirits who occupy the lower and higher realms, and the innumerable multitude of stars that fill the night sky, and all the galaxies they are contained within. And then God said, we shall call this place Earth, and it'll be the place where all of the realities merge, where all the thoughts I've been thinking will be rendered as trees and rocks and birds, and the splintering of ocean waves upon the cliffs, and the storms that swallow entire continents. And I'll fix my gaze upon this place, and the joys and sorrows of the creatures who dwell here will be as close to me as the blinking of my own eyes. And I'll fashion women and men in my own image, and I'll breathe on them as I have not breathed on any of my other beings, the lizards and the cockroaches, the mycelia and birds, the angels and many messengers who inhabit all the celestial realms. On human beings alone I will endow my own heart, that sad, adoring, mesmerizing space from which all the other mysteries are born. And they'll know the ecstasy of God and my overwhelming love for all things. And they'll know the intelligence of God and my grandeur and simplicity that masquerades in infinite and infinitesimal form. And they'll know the intensity of God, my passion and my heat, my desire to see all things merge and then be torn out by the roots. And the loneliness of God. They will know that too. Okay, this next poem is the first time I've read this poem for an audience from the book. And I think the reason is because it's called BDSM. And it compares God to a dominatrix who is simultaneously going at it with us while torturing us. which I think is a pretty good metaphor for what life is kind of like, right? Okay, here we go. And it's got one of those, what do you call when there's a little quote before? It's like epigram or epigraph. Is it epitaph? I thought epitaph was on a cemetery thing. Anyway, it's an epi-something.
There's epigraph and epitaph.
Okay, cool. Great. I love showing my ignorance about stuff I should know in poetry, in a poetry setting. Because it's bullshit. It's just intelligence. It's just, you can read it in a book. Okay. Anyway, the quote, the epic quote before is by a guy, Scott Casey, who's the old owner of the Black Drop, a really awesome coffee shop up in Bellingham. And he's this great guitar player and writes these really dark stuff. And this one was, he played this at Poetry Night one night up in Bellingham. And the chorus was, God won't leave me alone even though he's broken all of my bones. Just a very haunting refrain. So.
Well, speaking of haunting, have you seen the images he's posting on his trip?
I haven't, no. What's he doing?
He's down in Moab and all this place,
Cool.
and doing these almost like that quote. I mean, he's seeing God.
Cool. I'm going to check it out. Yeah, Scott, he's a cool guy. Okay, speaking of the loneliness. When the loneliness descends out of that great clear cloud of all my disappointments, and I see the world for what it is, which is a dance hall and a slaughterhouse, where all things are bred to eventually be destroyed, where we have our brief moment upon the auction block of life before the multitude of devils and saints, where we briefly learn to dance this improbable, joyful jig from within our respective chains. God, the great dominatrix, presiding over it all, whip in hand, flailing us and fucking us at the same time. Here is where the metaphor breaks down, for the Dom will only strike you in safe places. And we all know there's nothing safe about this God. When you can look into a mirror and see the poppies blooming between the battle lines of your brows, when you can see the sadness pooling in even your most convincing smile, then I think maybe you've seen it, that thing that even the yogi levitating in his cave may never see. And maybe then it'll be all right to know there are no safe words, to accept that there is no way to call time out. Maybe then you can raise up your mouth to drink like wine is pouring from the sky. Extend your arms as if in supplication. Prepare to take the blows.
Yeah! Only $16. Take the book home with you.
16. I'll negotiate for 15 with you. We're here, poor starving artists, we can negotiate even more. All right. I'll do a couple more for you. The experience wasn't all in the muck. A lot of it was in the muck, but there were a few kind of, when you're in a terrible situation where you can't walk and nothing is going right in your life and you're wondering what the hell is happening, sometimes really funny things happen. The funniest things happen in that. So this was this is one of those moments. Woods Coffee, Friday night. So I'm in the only coffee shop in town, open past 9, on my laptop typing out some poems. This thick bearded guy with a briefcase sits down beside, looks like a trucker. He strikes up a conversation. Yep, a trucker. Drove all the way from Florida to deliver a boat. Stuck 5 days in Iowa because of the snow. I likes it out here, but property's getting a bit expensive. Getting out of the business after 31 years says, no use doing something you no longer love. Hell, I can always become one of those greeters at Walmart. 5 days on the road straight can tell I'm going a bit loopy. By this point, I've asked something like 1.5 questions. He asked me if I live around here. I explained my situation, how I'd hurt my back, given up my job, and was now back living with my folks. He says, you need to thank God. I say I count my blessings. He has me stand up like I'm a soldier at attention, right there in the middle of the coffee shop. Everyone is watching. He has me suck in my gut and hold it. Says, do that 30 minutes at a time, 7 times a day, 7 days a week for 18 months straight, and your back pain will magically go away. Says he used to have a brutal case of sciatica so bad they had to lift him in and out of his truck. Started doing this ab exercise and hasn't had a lick of pain since. Now he does it all day constantly while he's driving, so he's super ripped. Says the guy once took a baseball bat to his gut and didn't even flinch. And the guy asked how this was possible. Told him about the ab exercise. Turned out this guy had back pain too. Then he started doing the ab exercise. Now his back pain's gone as well. For a moment, my eyes pop out of my skull, but I'm able to push them back in place before he's able to notice. Tells me I'm a fortunate man, delayed on his trip, 5 days stuck in the Iowa snow, and now he knows the reason why, that through him, God has delivered me the answer to my pain. I say God works in mysterious ways. Granted, I noticed down the street there's a friend with a near crippling herniated disc, but tonight God did not give this trucker a taste for beer. I get worried that soon he'll have me on my knees, confessing all my sins, so I pack up my stuff and flee. Say, hope you get back up to Bellingham soon. Now maybe this exercise will kill all my pain. Maybe God did send him all the way across the plains to deliver me this news. Certain men have been delivering such news since before recorded time. What I do know from this scratch of life I've lived so far, never trust the words of certain men. God out there somewhere on his secret pile, hatching plans. God peeking through his maybes nest, playing hide and seek. And I have to go in to find him. Such men, I know now, are merely part of the screen. Thanks. I'll do just 2 more and then we'll call it a night and let the next crew of folks come up. So it's wonderful listening to you all. You guys got some good stuff. And I guess this is the announcement part. If you like what you heard tonight, and you're willing to invest 2 gallons of gas into driving, and if you're one of those rare people that travels more than 50 miles for poetry, next Saturday I'll be performing with a great retinue of poets up in Bellingham. Kevin Murphy, who, if you haven't heard of him, you need to. He's this hidden gem up in Bellingham who's extraordinary. And then a couple other poets as well. We'll be performing at Present Studio, which is this cool dance space with a great ambience. $5 at the door. That's May 30th. There's a poster in the back if you're interested. And I'm doing a writing retreat that same day, just one day, downtown Bellingham. My writing retreats I try to have them on the experiential side of things. So it's about getting together and trying to create an experience, bringing in music, bringing in interesting poems in this one it'll be some of the ancient Chinese masters, Han Shan, Zhu Fu, some of these really insightful Zen masters. Creating an experience where you get tapped into that creativity, where it just opens up and it starts to flow forth. And you find as much as you write something interesting, you find out something about yourself. So, if you're interested, there's flyers back here. It's on a sliding scale, which I do to try to make it affordable to as many as possible. So, yeah. Want to hear another poem?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get deep. This book goes into the deep end. I don't write this. This book isn't about cat shit. Okay. So I guess we decided to kill the other Boston bomber, right? This was a poem that was written shortly after that poem, before we knew who the other suspects were. So it's not really connected with the Sarnaya brothers at all. But it was written in response to that attack. A bomb goes off at a marathon in Boston. Like everyone else, I'm looking at the pictures posted on blogs, trying to see what sidewalks look like when they're drenched in blood, what pandemonium looks like when it happens in the midst of cherry blossoms and Starbucks and Adidas facades, instead of the scratchy palms and yellow brick of Pakistan. I don't want to write about carpenter nails embedded in the backs of fit Westerners with master's degrees, just like I don't want to write about Muslim school children who now walk on donated prosthetics. I don't want to point my finger in the air and shout, it was he who did this, or they who caused this, or those crude men who build the bombs. I want to be with the wounded, I want to touch the hands of those who now roll in wheelchairs. I want to hear the voices of the women who've eaten shrapnel. I want to record the words of those who've been at the epicenter of a hell when the earth breaks out in fire. I want to know if those who were there will really say in the end, after the last stitches have been removed and the payments have been given out and there is no longer any further hope of recovery, they can take our hands and feet, our eyes and ears, and even the throats we laugh from, but they will never take away our will to love. Thanks. This has been a pleasure. It's always lovely coming back to Ziggy's. It's always a great audience and been great. Thank you, Glenn, for doing this and what you do. And for everybody who comes out for poetry, it's just it always touches me that like in this world of mass media and like you can buy a Bud Light like in any store across America and it tastes exactly the same, but like we come out to read our poems, like however uncool or uninteresting or interesting and fascinating and really they are. We share that experience with each other. It's important. So, okay. This is the last poem of the book. The story ends. We're going to destroy the universe and then start it again and get back to the beginning. And what if at the very end, after the whole cosmos has become a vast empty sea of listless photons, the universe hits the rewind button, plays itself in reverse. Exploded stars hold constitutional conferences, decide to reintegrate. Bits of dust gather to themselves, become planets. Galaxies reconstruct as merry-go-rounds. Someone gives a push, they spin. Here on Earth we go back to the business of rising from the grave. Coffins pull themselves out of the ground. Family members lift them into hearses where they're carried back to funeral parlors and toxic chemicals are pumped out of their bodies. Then they're driven to a hospital where a doctor pronounces them dead and they return to life. Slowly, gentle, uneven breathing first and steady like a machine. All of a sudden your eyes open. You say, "Eubalai." Tears unsoak themselves from your middle-aged daughter's blouse, slither back up her cheeks into her eyes. A frail old man learns to walk again. His memories return. The scattershot of his mind returns to its casing and he finds that he's full of heartbreaks, full of unfinished things he wished he could have done, full of beautiful, tender moments that bring him tears. Now he's living these again. He and his wife unsigned their divorce, decide to seal back up all their disappointments with each other behind reluctant smiles, live in fragile peace. Now they're happy again. What they know of each other steadily declines to the point that they kiss. A rebellious college-age blonde moves into their house, unpierces her nose, becomes a teenager. Her breasts shrivel into her chest and all her friends come over to celebrate with birthday cake and a puppy. Now he's young again. His strength again begins to diminish as he unlearns facts, unlearns friends and lovers and the miles he's run and the mountains climbed, unlearns his confidence in himself and all the things he believes he knows for sure, becomes simple and small, a boy in his sandbox, unbuilding his castles, making roughed up surfaces smooth. Becomes an infant, sucks feces up his anus, spits it out his mouth as food. All things around him become clean and whole. The last scar erases itself from his body. He returns to his mother's womb, to satiety and warmth. She in turn returns to her mother, and her mother to another womb, womb after womb, shrinking into embryos to the point where there are no more wombs. All life breaking from each other like splitting cucumbers. The first cells become stones. The stones remember nothing, only the urge to become hot, to become magma. The planet becomes fire, flies out of its orbit, returns to become a chunk of another broken star. The universe collapsing on itself faster and faster, returns to naivety, returns to uncomplicated urge, to unproblematic rage, to unmanifest desire, packs itself into a point of light, infinitely small, infinitely hot, infinitely bright, then too disappears into the dark, empty womb of the void. One final note. Dogs love that poem. Whenever I read that poem, dogs like they get excited and do weird stuff like that. So I don't know. It's cute. There's only two dogs have done that. But I'm going to see if more dogs do it. So.
Matthew Brouwer. Big round of applause for Matthew.